A night of nerves. Jasmine Reed checked her reflection one last time in the glass doors of the Grandstone Resort. The borrowed navy dress felt too fancy, too tight, too everything. She tucked a strand of her auburn hair behind her ear and took a deep breath. The salty air from her hometown of Clearwater Bay never smelled this expensive. Inside the resort lobby, everything gleamed. Marble columns rose toward ceiling fixtures that looked like they cost more than her entire college tuition. Well-dressed people moved through the space with the kind of confidence that came from never worrying about money. Jasmine gripped her portfolio bag tighter and headed toward the elevator. Her supervisor's email had been clear. Corporate mixer. 7th floor terrace. 6 o'clock sharp. Networking required. This was her third week as a marketing intern at Coastal Properties Group, and she desperately needed to make the right impression. Her mother's medical bills weren't going to pay themselves. The elevator hummed softly as it climbed. A woman in a pearl necklace gave Jasmine's dress a quick scan and looked away. Jasmine felt her cheeks warm. She knew she didn't belong in this world of designer labels and platinum credit cards, but she was determined to earn her place. The uncomfortable encounter. The doors opened to a hallway decorated with expensive artwork and soft lighting. Jasmine could hear music and conversation drifting from the terrace ahead. She smoothed her dress and started forward. "Excuse me." The voice came from behind. Deep, authoritative, expensive sounding. Jasmine turned to find a man watching her with dark eyes that seemed to calculate her worth in seconds. He was tall, probably in his mid-30s, wearing a suit that definitely wasn't off the rack. His black hair was styled perfectly, his jaw strong and clean-shaven. "Yes?" Jasmine managed, her voice steadier than she felt. The man stepped closer. "You're here for the evening. I appreciate punctuality." Jasmine blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather wallet, extracting a platinum card without breaking eye contact. "The arrangement. I assume the standard rate applies. We can go to my suite now, or if you prefer to discuss terms first, that works too." The words hit Jasmine like cold water. Her brain stuttered, trying to process what he just said. Rate. Terms. Suite. Wait, hold on, Jasmine shook her head, anger rising fast. "You think I'm here to. If you're not the escort my assistant arranged, then I apologize for the confusion." His tone suggested he didn't believe his own apology. "But you're clearly not dressed for the corporate event upstairs." The breaking point. Jasmine felt something crack inside her chest. All the insecurity, all the fear, all the times she felt too poor, too inexperienced, too small town, it all boiled up into fury. "Let me get this straight," her voice shook but grew louder. "You saw me standing here, assumed I was a prostitute, and offered me money. Because what, exactly? Because I don't look rich enough to attend a business function?" The man's jaw tightened. "That's not what I said." "But it's what you meant." Jasmine stepped forward, her fear evaporating into righteous anger. "You took one look at me and decided I couldn't possibly be a professional. I must be here to sell myself." "I made an assumption based on available information," he said coolly, but something flickered in his eyes. "Doubt, maybe. Or shame." "Available information?" Jasmine laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "You mean you saw a woman who doesn't wear $1,000 dresses and decided she must be desperate? Well, congratulations. You've officially made this night unforgettable." She turned sharply and pushed through the terrace doors before he could respond. Her hands trembled as she grabbed a glass of water from a passing server. The anger still burned in her throat, mixing with humiliation that made her eyes sting. The terrible discovery. The terrace was beautiful. String lights hung overhead, and the ocean stretched endlessly beyond the railing. Business professionals clustered in groups, discussing markets and mergers and things Jasmine barely understood yet. She found a quiet corner and tried to compose herself. "Attention everyone!" a voice called out. Jasmine looked up to see her supervisor, Rebecca Walsh, standing near a microphone. "Thank you all for coming tonight. We're excited to announce a special partnership between Coastal Properties and Morrison Development Group." Jasmine's stomach sank. "Please welcome the president of Morrison Development, Blake Morrison." "No. Please, no." The man from the hallway walked onto the small stage. The same dark eyes. The same expensive suit. The same person who had just offered her money for sex. Blake Morrison took the microphone with practiced ease. "Thank you, Rebecca. Morrison Development is thrilled to partner with Coastal Properties on the new Bayfront Commercial Center. This project represents millions in investment and hundreds of jobs for our community." Jasmine wanted to disappear. To sink through the terrace floor and never resurface. Blake's gaze swept the crowd and landed on her. Recognition flashed across his face. His speech faltered for just a second before he recovered. "We look forward to working with your talented team in the coming months." The crowd applauded. Jasmine barely heard it over the rushing in her ears. The assignment. After the speeches, Rebecca found Jasmine near the dessert table. "Great news. You've been assigned to the Morrison project. Mr. Morrison specifically requested fresh perspectives from our intern program." Jasmine's stomach dropped. "He what?" "I know, right? What an opportunity." Rebecca beamed. "First meeting is Monday morning. Don't be late." Jasmine watched Blake across the terrace, surrounded by executives. He glanced her way once, his expression unreadable. She felt trapped between fury and panic. This couldn't be happening. She was going to have to work with the man who thought she was an escort. The man who looked at her and saw someone who could be bought. She set down her untouched dessert and headed for the exit. Behind her, she heard someone call her name, but she didn't stop. The elevator couldn't come fast enough. As the doors closed, Jasmine caught one last glimpse of Blake Morrison watching her leave. Something in his expression looked almost regretful. But Jasmine didn't care about his regrets. She cared about surviving the next few months without losing her mind or her job. The elevator descended, carrying her away from the terrace, from the lights, from the most humiliating moment of her life. Monday was going to be a nightmare. But Jasmine Reed had survived worse. She'd survived her father's death, her mother's illness, putting herself through college on scholarships and part-time jobs. She could survive Blake Morrison. She had to. Monday morning reckoning. Jasmine arrived at the Morrison Development offices 15 minutes early. The building was all glass and steel, reaching toward the sky like a monument to wealth. She'd barely slept all weekend, her mind replaying that horrible moment in the hallway over and over. The receptionist directed her to the 10th floor conference room. Jasmine's heels clicked against the polished marble as she walked, each step feeling like a march toward disaster. Blake Morrison was already there, standing by the windows with his back to the door. He wore charcoal gray today, his hands clasped behind him as he looked out at the city below. "Ms. Reed," he said without turning around. "You're early." "I believe in punctuality," Jasmine replied, keeping her voice professional and cold. Blake turned to face her. In the morning light, she noticed details she'd missed before. Fine lines around his eyes that suggested he didn't sleep much. A tension in his shoulders that spoke of constant pressure. He looked tired beneath the expensive polish. "About Friday night," he began. "I'd prefer to keep this professional," Jasmine cut him off, setting her bag on the conference table. "We both have jobs to do. Let's focus on that." Blake studied her for a long moment. "Agreed. But I need you to understand something first. Mr. Morrison, I really don't think we need to." "I was wrong." His voice was firm, brooking no argument. Completely, inexcusably wrong. I made an assumption based on nothing but my own jaded worldview, and I insulted you in the process. That's not who I want to be, and it's certainly not how I conduct business. Jasmine paused, surprised by the directness. Okay. I can't undo what I said. But I can promise it won't color how we work together. You're here because Rebecca says you're talented, not because I'm trying to make amends. Blake pulled out a chair. Can we start over? Jasmine considered him carefully. The apology seemed genuine, but trust wasn't something she gave easily anymore. Professional courtesy. Nothing more. Fair enough. Building bridges. The Bayfront Commercial Center project was massive. 12 buildings, mixed residential and retail, overlooking the harbor. Jasmine's role was to develop the marketing strategy for the retail spaces. It meant hours of market research, demographic analysis, and strategic planning. It also meant working closely with Blake. The first week was stilted and awkward. They communicated through emails and brief meetings, keeping everything formal and distant. But gradually, Jasmine began to see past her anger. Blake was brilliant at what he did. He understood markets, construction, finance, all the moving pieces that made development succeed or fail. But more than that, he listened. When Jasmine presented her ideas for targeting local businesses instead of national chains, he didn't dismiss her inexperience. He asked questions, challenged her assumptions, pushed her to think deeper. The numbers don't support it, Blake said during their second week, pointing at her projections. Local businesses have higher failure rates. Investors want stability. But they also want authenticity, Jasmine countered, pulling up her research. Look at these case studies. Developments that prioritize community integration see better long-term tenant retention and higher foot traffic. People don't want another generic shopping center. Blake leaned back, considering. Show me a financial model that proves it. Jasmine worked until midnight that night, building spreadsheets and projections. The next morning, she presented a plan that balanced local businesses with anchor tenants, creating a development that felt authentic while remaining financially sound. Blake studied her work in silence. Then he nodded. This is good. Really good. Let's present it to the investors. Pride bloomed in Jasmine's chest. She'd earned this, not through connections or luck, but through hard work and smart thinking. The cracks in the armor. 3 weeks into the project, Jasmine found Blake in his office at 9 in the evening. She'd come back to grab files she'd forgotten, surprised to see lights still on. He sat at his desk, tie loosened, staring at architectural plans with exhausted eyes. A half-eaten sandwich sat beside him, probably from lunch. You're still here, Jasmine said from the doorway. Blake looked up, startled. I could say the same to you. Forgot some documents. You? Trying to solve a problem with the foundation specs. He rubbed his eyes. The soil reports came back worse than expected. We might need to redesign the entire support structure. Jasmine walked in, setting her bag down. How bad? Bad enough that it could delay the project 6 months and add millions to the budget. Blake's voice carried a weight she hadn't heard before. Defeat, maybe. Or fear. Can I see? For the next 2 hours, they worked together, Jasmine asking questions and Blake explaining the technical challenges. She didn't have solutions, but she listened, and somehow that seemed to help. Blake's shoulders gradually relaxed. His voice lost some of its tension. Why are you being nice to me? Blake asked suddenly. Jasmine looked up from the plans. What? After what I did, what I said, you should hate me. But here you are, staying late to help with a problem that isn't even your responsibility. Jasmine was quiet for a moment. I was angry. Really angry. But I've been thinking about what you said about making assumptions based on a jaded worldview. And I realized you weren't seeing me that night. You were seeing whatever made you that jaded in the first place. Jasmine met his eyes. I'm not saying it excuses what you did. But I understand it better now. Blake's expression softened. That's more grace than I deserve. Probably, Jasmine agreed. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because holding on to anger was exhausting me. Blake smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. It transformed his face, making him look younger, more human. You're remarkable, you know that? Jasmine felt her cheeks warm. I'm just trying to do my job. No, you're doing much more than that. Blake stood, gathering the plans. Let me buy you dinner. Actual dinner, as colleagues who've survived 3 weeks of intensive project work. Jasmine hesitated. The professional boundaries they'd maintained were safe, comfortable. Dinner felt like crossing a line. But she was hungry, and tired, and maybe ready to stop punishing both of them. Okay. But somewhere casual. I'm not dressed for fancy. Casual it is. The turning point. They went to a small Italian restaurant 2 blocks away. No tablecloths, no wine lists thicker than magazines. Just good pasta and honest conversation. Blake told her about growing up with parents who measured success only in dollars. About building his first development at 25 and losing everything when the market crashed. About the loneliness of being successful but empty. That night at the hotel, he said quietly, staring at his wine glass. I'd been working 18-hour days for months. I was exhausted, isolated, desperate for something that felt real instead of transactional. And then I saw you. And assumed the worst, Jasmine finished. And assumed the worst, Blake acknowledged. Because somewhere along the way, I forgot that real connections don't come with price tags. That not everything is a transaction. Jasmine felt something shift in her chest. Sympathy, maybe. Or understanding. I grew up in a town where everyone knew everyone. My dad was a fisherman. We never had money, but we had community. When he died, people brought food for months. They helped with bills, with my mom's medical expenses, with everything. That sounds nice. It was. But it also meant I always felt like I owed people. Like I had to prove I was worth their investment. Jasmine smiled sadly. That's why your assumption hurt so much. It felt like confirmation that I didn't belong in this world. That I'd always be the poor girl playing dress up. Blake reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. You belong anywhere you decide to be, Jasmine. Your ideas, your work ethic, your intelligence, those aren't borrowed or fake. They're earned. Their eyes met, and Jasmine felt the air between them change. Charged with something neither of them could name yet. The crisis. The next morning, everything fell apart. Jasmine arrived at the office to find Rebecca waiting with a grim expression. We have a problem. Someone leaked preliminary plans for the Bayfront project to the press, and they're not happy about the displacement of local businesses. Jasmine's stomach dropped. What? But we specifically designed the project to support local businesses. The leaked plans are from the original proposal, before your revisions. Rebecca handed her a tablet showing news articles. Morrison Development is being painted as corporate raiders pushing out mom and pop shops. Blake appeared, his face dark with anger. Who had access to those old plans? Limited people. Jasmine, myself, your team, the investors. Rebecca looked worried. This could kill the project before it starts. Blake's jaw tightened. Then we fix it. Now. They spent the day crafting responses, reaching out to community leaders, arranging meetings with concerned business owners. Jasmine worked alongside Blake, their earlier connection forgotten in the crisis. But late that night, alone in the conference room with final press releases, Blake turned to her. "I need to tell you something." "What?" "One of my investors, Richard Chen, he didn't like your community-focused approach. Said it was too risky, too idealistic." Blake's voice was tight. "I think he leaked the old plans to force us back to the original design." Jasmine felt cold. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to drop him as an investor and move forward with your plan. Even if it costs me millions." Blake met her eyes. "Because you were right. This development should serve the community, not just extract wealth from it. Blake, that's your career, your company. And it means nothing if I build it on compromises I can't live with." He stepped closer. "You've reminded me why I started this in the first place. Not just to make money, but to create something meaningful." Jasmine's heart pounded. "That's either really brave or really stupid." "Probably both." Blake smiled. "But I'd rather be broke and honest than wealthy and hollow." In that moment, Jasmine realized she was falling for him. Not because he was wealthy or powerful, but because he was willing to risk everything for what was right. "Then let's make sure you don't go broke," she said firmly. "We'll find new investors. Better ones who share our vision." Blake's expression softened with something that looked like hope. "Our vision?" "Our vision," Jasmine confirmed. And somewhere in the chaos and crisis, they became partners in more than just business, going public. The fallout from dropping Richard Chen was immediate and brutal. Financial publications questioned Blake's judgment. Other investors grew nervous. Stock prices for Morrison Development dropped 12% in a single day. But Blake didn't flinch. He and Jasmine spent 2 weeks meeting with community groups, presenting their revised plans, showing how the Bayfront project would create opportunities for local businesses while remaining financially viable. Slowly, public opinion shifted. A small business owner wrote an editorial praising their approach. A community organization endorsed the project. Local news picked up the story of a developer choosing people over profits. New investors emerged, ones who saw the value in sustainable, community-focused development. Within a month, Blake had replaced Chen's funding with better partnerships. Through it all, Jasmine and Blake grew closer. Late nights in the office turned into shared dinners. Strategy sessions became conversations about dreams and fears. The professional boundaries they'd maintained began to blur. "We should be careful," Jasmine said one evening as they reviewed contracts in Blake's office. "People are already watching us closely. If they think I'm getting ahead because of something personal." Blake looked up. "Is there something personal?" Jasmine's breath caught. "I don't know. Is there?" He stood, moving around the desk until he was close enough that she could smell his cologne. "I think about you constantly. When I'm in meetings, when I'm reviewing plans, when I'm trying to sleep. You've become the most important part of my days." "Blake." Jasmine's voice trembled. "But if this puts your career at risk, if it makes people question what you've earned, then I'll step back. Your success matters more to me than my feelings." Jasmine stood, closing the distance between them. "What if I don't want you to step back? Then we do this right. No secrets, no hiding. We tell Rebecca, we make everything transparent, and we let your work speak for itself." Jasmine nodded. "Okay. We do it right." Blake's hand cupped her face gently. "Can I kiss you now?" "Yes." The kiss was soft at first, tentative, like they were both afraid to break something precious. Then it deepened, months of tension and connection pouring into the moment. Jasmine's hands found his hair. Blake's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Jasmine laughed. "We're really doing this, aren't we?" "If you'll have me," Blake said seriously. "Not as your boss or your client, but as someone who wants to build something real with you." "I'll have you," Jasmine whispered. The scrutiny. Going public with their relationship was harder than either expected. Rebecca was supportive but cautious, assigning Jasmine to other projects to avoid conflicts of interest. Blake's board questioned his judgment. Industry colleagues whispered about inappropriate relationships and power imbalances. The worst came from an anonymous online post claiming Jasmine had seduced Blake to advance her career. The post went viral in their industry circles, filled with speculation and judgment. Jasmine read it alone in her apartment, tears streaming down her face. Everything she'd feared was coming true. Her accomplishments were being erased, reduced to sleeping her way to success. Blake showed up at her door an hour later, his face dark with fury. I'm issuing a statement. I'm going to destroy whoever posted that garbage. No, Jasmine said firmly, wiping her eyes. That makes it a bigger story. That makes me look weak, like I need you to fight my battles. Then what do we do? Jasmine took a breath, steadying herself. We keep working. We let results speak louder than rumors. The Bayfront project launches in 3 months. When it succeeds, when those local businesses thrive, when the community sees what we built together, that will be the answer. Blake pulled her close. I hate that you have to deal with this. I hate it too. But I'm not giving up on us, and I'm not giving up on what I've earned. Jasmine looked up at him. Are you? Never, Blake promised. The grand gesture. The Bayfront Commercial Center opened on a sunny Saturday in June. 12 buildings gleaming white against the harbor. Shops owned by local families, restaurants serving regional cuisine, art galleries showcasing community talent. Everything Jasmine had envisioned. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew hundreds of people. Local officials, business owners, families excited to explore the new development. Blake stood on the stage, preparing to speak, when he did something unexpected. Before we cut the ribbon, I need to acknowledge someone, Blake said into the microphone. Jasmine Reed, could you come up here? Jasmine froze in the crowd. Rebecca nudged her forward. On shaky legs, she climbed the stairs. Blake took her hand in front of everyone. This project wouldn't exist without Jasmine. Not just her marketing strategy, but her vision, her courage to challenge me when I was wrong, her commitment to doing what's right instead of what's easy. The crowd murmured. Cameras flashed. There have been rumors about our relationship, speculation about her professionalism. So let me be completely clear. Blake's voice rang out strong. Jasmine Reed is the most talented marketer I've ever worked with. She earned every opportunity through brilliance and hard work. And yes, I'm also deeply in love with her. Those two facts can both be true. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. Anyone who questions her abilities or achievements can speak to me directly. But I suspect that after today, after you see what we've built together with this community, there won't be much left to question. Blake turned to her. I love you, Jasmine Reed. In front of everyone. No hiding, no shame. Just truth. Jasmine laughed through her tears. You're impossible. Is that a yes? To what? Blake pulled a small box from his pocket and dropped to one knee. The crowd gasped. To spending the rest of your life building impossible things with me. To being my partner in every sense of the word. To proving that love and success aren't mutually exclusive. Blake opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring. Marry me, Jasmine. Jasmine looked at the crowd, at the buildings they'd created, at the man kneeling before her who'd transformed from her worst mistake into her greatest blessing. Yes, she said clearly. Yes, I'll marry you. The crowd erupted in applause. Blake stood, sliding the ring on her finger and kissing her as cameras captured the moment. Jasmine didn't care about the publicity anymore. She'd spent months proving herself. Now she was ready to simply be happy. The future they built. 1 year later, Jasmine stood in the same conference room where she'd first confronted Blake. But now it was her office. Her name on the door. Vice President of Community Development for Morrison Group. She'd earned it through 3 successful projects, each one proving that profit and purpose could coexist. Blake had supported her, but he hadn't given her anything she hadn't worked for. Their wedding had been small, intimate, on a beach in Clearwater Bay where Jasmine grew up. Her mother had cried happy tears. Blake's parents had slowly learned that their son's worth wasn't measured in dollars alone. The company thrived. Morrison Development became known for community-focused projects that actually worked financially. Other developers started copying their model. Blake appeared in her doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Mrs. Morrison, you have a meeting in 10 minutes. Jasmine smiled. She'd kept her name professionally as Jasmine Reed, but she loved when he called her Mrs. Morrison in private. "What would I do without you?" "Probably succeed wildly on your own," Blake said honestly, setting the coffee down. "But I'm grateful you let me be part of it." Jasmine stood, wrapping her arms around him. "Remember when you thought I was an escort?" Blake groaned. "Are you ever going to let me forget that?" "Never. It's too good a story." Jasmine kissed him softly. "Besides, it's how we started. You, being an arrogant jerk. Me, putting you in your place. Us, finding something real in the mess. Best mistake I ever made," Blake murmured against her lips. "Second best," Jasmine corrected. "The best mistake was me giving you a second chance." Blake laughed. "Fair point." They stood together in the office overlooking the city, 2 people who'd found each other in the worst possible way and built something beautiful anyway. The journey had been hard, filled with judgment and doubt and moments when giving up seemed easier. But they hadn't given up. They'd fought for each other and for themselves. They'd proven that love didn't diminish ambition, that partnership could mean equality, that success built on honesty mattered more than success built on shortcuts. Jasmine's phone buzzed with a reminder. Blake reluctantly stepped back. "Go change the world," he said with a smile. "Only if you come with me," Jasmine replied. "Always." And hand in hand, they walked out to face whatever came next, together.